Hi, everyone. So great to see you all here today. I just want to take a quick moment to recognize and thank Addie and all her team at the Business Success Consulting Group. They've been such valuable strategic partners for the Profit Recipe and helping businesses streamline their operations and grow with clarity and confidence. And we've had the pleasure of going through their program ourselves. So we've firsthand uh, seen how powerful their work really is. So we're just really grateful to have Addie and all her team as part of this community. So I don't want to take much more of your time. Thank you, Addie.
Thank you, Louisa. Yes, it's been a pleasure being a strategic partner with the Profit Recipe. They do fantastic work. We work with many of the clients, and it's a great collaboration. So thank you. All right, let's get started. So this is a webinar on how to get your processes followed by all. So my name is Adi. I am the founder of Business Success Consulting Group. I've been doing this work meaning process documentation, improvement, optimization, for over 30 years. I started Business Success Consulting Group in 2011, and I very soon discovered the need for process documentation done it for you. So basically, that's what we do. We go into companies and we document, optimize, implement processes and procedures. So I'm telling you that so you know that I definitely know what I'm talking about when I'm going to share how to get the processes followed by all. Those are proven methods that we have used with hundreds and hundreds of businesses, just like yours. We work with small, medium-sized businesses, depends on how you define it, but we know the challenges, we know the obstacles. We work with fast-growing companies that are lacking consistency. We hear all the time, but I don't have time, I don't know how, I have to scale, but I can't stop to write processes. So I understand what you are going through. And what I'm going to show you today, those are proven methods that can be implemented. And if you take note of it, and even if you do one step at a time, and that's really the best way to do it, you will be successful at doing it. My objective from this talk today is that you will take at least one thing. And by the way, just housekeeping, if everybody can just mute yourselves because we're hearing somebody who is not muted, and Joey can also help do that. Okay, so the objective is that you are going to take at least one thing that you are going to be able to implement in the next, let's say, month. Like, first of all, you're going to take one thing and implement within this month. And I want to give you a challenge, and I'm going to give it to you also at the end of the webinar, is that you email us and let us know what your decision is. What did you take out of this webinar? And then let us know when you accomplish that. We love hearing that. We love hearing successes. We love hearing when, yesterday I got an email from a client when he said that he's reflecting back on where he was a year ago and where he's in now, and he can actually take time out of the business in order to handle things that he needs to handle, and he was so grateful. So that's what I want you to have as well. Take one thing and implement it. All right, so I would like this to be a collaborative workshop. I don't want to lecture at you. Now, usually when I do it in person, it's not a problem. Somebody raises their hand and I can see and I can answer. Here, it's a little bit more complicated because I don't see you, but Joey is here monitoring. And if she sees a question in the chat at the right time, she will stop me and I will answer the question. There's, of course, going to be also time for Q&A at the end. And you can always reach me after. That's part of the benefit that you are getting from the Profit Recipe and me being a strategic partner, is that you all get a free session with me to talk to you about whatever questions you have about your processes and process implementation. So we're going to have a quick poll. We're going to discuss how to get your processes followed by all. We're going to share our proven 8-step process. Again, I'm going to go pretty fast. There's going to be a lot of information. This is being recorded, and Louisa can send you the recording if you would like. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you would like to get the presentation, the copy of the slides, just email us and we'll be happy to share it with you. Again, it's a lot of information. You're going to take some today, watch it over and over, because this is the process on how to get your processes followed by all. We're going to go we have until 12:30 Eastern. So we're going to go with the presentation until about 12:15, and then we're going to have 15 minutes for Q&A. So first of all, I would like to hear from you. So how well documented are your business processes? So put it in the chat. A, very well documented. B, somewhat documented. And C, not documented at all. All right, so we have some C's, a lot of B's, B, yeah, some C, okay, good. Yeah, B, you know what? You are not different than the rest of the business owners, the entrepreneurs that I give that webinar to. B is the most common answer. And I know I have an educated crowd where you have somewhat documented, but there is more to learn. How consistently are those processes followed by your team? A, always. B, sometimes. C, rarely or never. Go ahead and enter it in the chat. Okay, great. Any more answers? I see also B, a lot of B's, almost everybody B. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, the last question here. What is the biggest challenge you face in process adherence? A, lack of time or resources to implement. B, lack of buy-in. C, ineffective documentation. D, other reasons. And let us know what the reason is. If you have, it's okay if you have A and B, you can actually do more than one. If you wrote D, all of the above is good. If you wrote D, if you don't mind sharing what it is, that'll be good, so we know. Lack of ownership, okay, good. B and C, great. Okay, well, great, and thank you for participating. This is very good. All right, so now let's talk about the 8 steps to ensure that your processes are followed by all. Because as you said, the number 1, it was B and C, but lack of team buy-in, ineffective documentation, lack of ownership. So that, and you also mentioned lack of time or resources to implement. And one of the things that I found about A is lack of time. Also, we need to break it down what that lack of time comes from. Because time is a resource, right? And it's how we manage that resource. So if we do not have the know-how on how to do it, or if the obstacles are too big, sometimes we go, okay, we're going to leave it aside. I just don't want to prioritize that. I don't have time to do it right now. But if you have the empowerment, if you have the knowledge, you might find or decide to make the time to do that. So here are the 8 steps. We're going to start with step number 1. I want you to take a minute and guess what step number 1 is. You know what? I actually would like to get you right in the chat if you know what the next step is. Who is the brave person? Identify key processes. Okay, who else has a guess here? Okay, clear communication, close, very close. It's true. Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you what it is. It's mindset. You have to, first of all, have the correct mindset. And I'm talking to you as the leader, whether you are the visionary, whether you are part of the leadership team, whether you're the integrator, you have to have the right mindset to be a process-driven leader. And I'm going to go over what it means. And, don't dismiss that, because it starts with your decision to say, okay, that's it. We might have had obstacles in the past. It might have been hard to do that. I might get resistance. I don't have the time. I'm growing too fast. Whatever it is, if you convince yourself that you have the right mindset regarding process documentation and implementation, then the rest of the 7 steps we will be able to implement them. If you don't, if you have the mindset, oh, processes are not important. Yeah, it's something I read in the EOS book, but it really doesn't apply to me. No matter what, I don't have the time for it. Whatever you're telling yourself, whatever story you're telling yourself right now, if we don't handle that, we're not going to be able to move forward. So what is leadership commitment to process adherence? Leadership is role models. So the first, you have to have the mindset of, yes, I am a role model. I am going to do everything that I'm telling my people to do, and I'm going to do it very well. I actually, as a matter of fact, I have a whole lecture that I do, and I might do it in the future, which is what's the mindset attribute. I got unmuted for a second. Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, so what are the characteristics, the attributes of a process-driven leader? But you definitely have to, first of all, make the decision that you are going to set an example to your team. You have to have a commitment that you are building a culture of trust, accountability, and clear communication. That's part of creating that mindset. Asking yourself, what am I building here? And that is the culture that you are actually building. If you want to have clear vision and direction, you have to have processes. And you have to be convinced yourself. I'm not here to convince you of that. But that's part of having that mindset, is that you have to have a clear vision and direction. And the way to achieve it is by giving specific processes and procedures and adhere to them, get them followed. And quick implementation. If you want quick implementation, if you want things to actually happen, if you are sick of, well, I tell them to do it and they didn't do it. If you really want to see it implemented, you have to have processes and procedures in place. And that is very important. And that's part of setting that mindset of, this is the mindset of, I want processes and procedures in my company. It is important to me, and this is why. So here is an exercise, and you can take a picture of it, or you can, again, I can send you the presentation that I would like for you to do with your leadership team, maybe in your next L10 meeting, on your quarterly, whenever you meet and you decide it's appropriate. But for right now, I'd like for you to all take a look at it and write the answer in the chat. Okay, you can write it for yourself, but if you would like to share, it's very important because people can share for other people's experience. So here's the question for you. I want you to take a look to reflect on your current mindset regarding process implementation, and what can you change or improve to ensure effective implementation. So go ahead and take a minute, write it. I know it might sound, for some of you, it might take more than a minute, but if one of you or 2 or 3 would like to add it in the chat so we can learn from each other, that'll be great. Good. So what I see here, we have, so need more time to build the templates and roll out the communication training. Okay, but the mindset from what I see is that you want it, right? The mindset is, do I want it? Like the mindset, it is important, right? So if you have that mindset, then things can, then you can continue with that. So more effectively communicate the why and the what as it relates to the need to have processes documented and FBA. Okay, good. That's very good. People are only about what it is. But it is. People are about what it is in it for me. True. But what is your mindset regarding process implementation, right? The mindset, I'm talking about a global mindset of you as the leader towards the organization. So if your mindset is, okay, I'm going to get it done. I want clear communication. I can create a group through processes. Then we're going to incorporate exactly that what is in it for me into that attitude so we can actually help everybody on the team to get buy-in. And actually, I use that acronym as well because that's very key in getting buy-in from the team. We have clear communication, making sure lead people are aware of the proper procedure. It's need to run a successful business and having clear goals. Okay, that's a really good mindset. Yeah, the mindset is, I know I need it. I know that without it, I can't grow. I know without it, I can't scale. And review the control of process implementation. Good. So, I'll tell you a story about myself. I started my company, as I told you, in 2011. I started as a general consulting company because I'm a very good strategist. I was able to help many people. Before that, I was working for an international consulting company. I managed 3 companies for a client. I actually had 2 of my own on the side. Always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And it was going very well because people wanted my advice, wanted my help. One of the things I would tell them is you need processes in order to scale, in order to sell the business, in order to train better, you got to have processes. And I will tell it week after week, and they didn't do it. And then I said, hey, how about if I do it for you? Really? You can do that? I said, absolutely, I can do it for you. So then I saw the need. So I started doing it with one client, but it became so successful that I got so many referrals that it just became a business. And I realized, and then I started hiring my first employee, my second employee, but I was still like working 80 hours a week. And the real shift happened when I shifted my viewpoint about what I need to do in terms of processes. I changed my mind. I realized that I want clear communication. I realized that I want quick implementation. And my mindset was, before I realized it was, I can't delegate. Nobody can understand what I'm doing. I mean, that's part of the mindset that a lot of entrepreneurs have, is nobody can understand what I'm doing. This cannot be documented. It's me. I can't put it into a process, or it will take me so long to write processes and get them implemented. It's easier and faster that I do it myself. And I hope you all agree that this is a mindset of sorts, right? That was my mindset. So the switch was when I said, in order for me to scale and grow, I can only do it with the help of processes, and the processes have to be, and I'm okay with delegating, and I'm okay to use the processes because this is the only way that I'm going to achieve clear, visible, and a very specific path for others to follow. So that is a change of mindset of why do we need processes and procedures. I know I spent quite a bit of time on that, but if you do not have that enthusiasm, that conviction, making that decision that, yes, this is going to work, then every small obstacle is going to throw you away from your way of actually implementing. If you have feedback and you say, yeah, I did, this is correct, I changed my mind, this is my mindset, I'll be happy to also hear from you, because otherwise I feel like you know how it is, I'm talking and it's like, thumbs up, reactions, all are welcome. All right, so let's go to step number 2. Get buy-in from your team, and many of you mentioned that. I'm going to now give you the steps on how to get buy-in from your team when you start on the process documentation and implementation project. The first thing, again, you handle yourself. You come there with the right attitude, you change your mind, and you go and you just go, okay, I'm all in. Now let's get the buy-in from your team. The first step is you present the benefits clearly. Somebody again says, what is it in it for me? That is the attitude. That's what people want to know. And that's why you need to present the benefits clearly, where it also relates to your team members, not just to yourself. Yes, you can say, we are going to now to document and implement the processes so I can take time off with my family finally, that I can be out of the business, that I can do this, I can do that. That's your why. We need to find out their why and present the benefits clearly of how it's going to benefit the team and what they're going to get out of it. Survey for feedback. We always do that. When we start a project, we always, and Luisa can attest to that, we survey and survey and survey. We ask questions. So you want to find out from your team, what is it in it for them? Like, why do they see it as important? If you don't understand that, you're going to squash over their own opinions, ideas, thoughts, and you're never going to be successful because they are not in it for them, and you're going to run into obstacles. Okay, next one is involve the team early. Don't wait until the last minute. Involve the team early from the beginning. It's a group effort. Everybody is there together. You're not going to win if you decide to do it as a special project by yourself without utilizing the team. Communicate regular updates. That is a mistake that I see people make. They engage on the project, they're super excited, but then there is no updates, and people think, oh, it just, just like this is one of our visionaries' shiny objects. They got so excited, and then they just left it, and it's okay, because I'm telling you, people know already that if they're going to wait 2-3 days, the excitement will go away, and then they're going to continue with the regular activities that they are doing. We don't want that. We want them to be involved all the time, and we want to keep the project alive. When we engage with a client, for instance, I'll give you an example, we send communications to the entire leadership team at least once a week of everything that got documented that week, with questions, with updates, with suggestions. It is kept alive, and that's what you need to do. You have to keep the project alive. Make it engaging. It's all about making it interesting. Sometimes I hear, oh, processes, that's boring. That's this, that's that. That's like, people are serious. It's not for me. I'm this, like, I'm here, I'm there. This is not the fun part. Look, I can tell you, and it's a confession, although that's my business, me sitting down and writing processes. It's like, oh, I much rather give lectures, talk to people, do business development. That's more my natural tendency. But when I sit down and I do write processes internally for my company, it does energize me because I'm thinking about the consequences and what we're going to solve and how much more freedom I will have. So however you want to make it engaging, I'll give you examples. I have clients that they decide like to do a pizza party once a week, and they gather everybody into a room with their laptops and they start writing processes. Great example. You can have gamified, make it a game, give prizes to those that finish early or that are engaged. Praise them in front of everyone in staff meeting. Whatever it is, you have to make it engaging. It's not a boring activity. All right, I want to hear from you now. So what are some creative ideas to engage teams in process documentation? Maybe you came up with it now. Maybe you have an idea that you implemented. Let's share some experiences so people can learn from it. Okay, so we got here, make it part of the delivery cycle. Interesting. I would like to hear more. What does that mean? How do you do that? Team want to have clear process. Sell team has tough time with understanding why they can't bend to able. Okay. Okay, I got the message on the sales team and the customer service, so I can address that later. They can't get their job done until they after the steps. Very good. Okay, good. So that's definitely part of it, is like you make it part of your CRM, part of your program. part of a checklist that they have to put in. Not creative, make it a rock. Okay, you make it a rock for sure, absolutely. That's also, it's engaging because they're engaging, right? Build swim lane diagrams and start with defining swimmer factors. Cool, that's right. Everybody gets a number, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's engaging. You know, those are creative ways to engage teams. What I mean by creative ways is that you don't just stand in front of them and start lecturing to them, but instead you go, okay, how can I really engage my team? What can I do in order to get them interested in what I'm doing? You know, like for instance, a picture of a mountain, this is the goal, this is where we are going, and a promise that this is what's going to happen when we have processes documented. That's a way to engage. You know, another way that I've seen, another way that I've seen it happen is that you define the measurements of success of the project. For instance, right now we're working with a company that they do windows and door installation. Before we started the project, we asked, what is it that will measure the success of the project? What do you want to achieve? And they told me, okay, right now we have errors. We have callbacks. Sometimes I have my technicians have to do remeasures and they have to go back, you know, maybe 10 of those a week. All right, what will be a success if we lower it to 2 a week maximum and then to 0? Good. So we keep that, and it can be kept on the wall somewhere. It can be something that you bring it up again in your L10 meetings, but you measure it against it, and then you go, okay, where are we at with the process documentation? Where are we at with the implementation? Did we actually successfully reduce the number of errors or the number of callbacks? If we did, great. It just keeps the engagement going, and it's creative. And here are some ideas I want to give you. These are some creative strategies. So gamification, make it a game. Who wins it? 2 teams against each other. Maybe you have 2 installation teams, and one of them, like who can use the process best in order to reduce the number of errors or increase the numbers of install on time. Involve the team in creation. Use everyday language. You know, don't be too sophisticated about it. Talk in your people's language, the way they talk, and it's part of everyday interaction. Visual decorative reminders, you know, the picture of the goal, the mountain, and interactive workshops. You know, you can basically create that, bring it into the conference room and start and talk. And as I said, you know, bring some snacks, put it together, and make it like a fun activity to document. All right, let's move on to 3. Ensure your processes are well documented. That is key in order to be able for the processes to be able to be followed by all. If you don't have them well documented, it will be hard to follow. People are going to it will reject people. They're not going to feel drawn to it, and they are not going to look at it. And if you don't look at it, if you don't read it, you won't be able to follow it. I know you go, Adi, you're saying the obvious. But believe me, when we go to companies and they tell me, oh, we have documented processes, but they're not being followed. The first question that I ask, you know what the first question I ask is, did your staff, did your team read the processes? They go, oh, yes, exactly. Because if you don't read them, you can't follow. In order to read them, you have to make sure they're followed by all. So right here, I know it's a big slide, but I'm going to explain it. So right here on the right, those are that's the advice I give on how to make sure your processes are well documented. Now, this workshop is about how to make sure your processes are followed by all. So I'm not going to necessarily go over it, but very fast. So we need to document your core processes. You have to do it collaboratively. You have to involve your team. If we have time in the Q&A and you want to ask me about it, I'll definitely answer. You got to keep them simple and clear. You have to make them consistent. You have to clearly define ownership of the process. It has to be linked to your core value and vision. And you have to use the 90-minute rule. You all here adhere to EOS. People they're busy. They have things to do. They go, how am I going to find the time? That's why we do it in 90 minutes increment. What we do with our clients is 1 meeting a week for 90 minutes where we extract the information. suggest you do the same. This is the checklist right here that if you follow it, and again, this is like a whole workshop by itself. And if you want a copy of it, I can also just email me. I'll give you the recording for that. But you need to do all of this in order to make sure your processes are well documented. And what we also can do is, this is a checklist right here that we use after we write a process or procedure, that we run this through the checklist to make sure that the procedure is complete. So if you would like a copy of this checklist right now, go right now to the chat, look for Joey. I'll give you time to do it if you want this one. Look for Joey and write your name and email, and she will email it to you. So you're going to get this actual checklist that you can use against each one of your procedures. So that's how you're going to make sure your processes or procedures are well documented. Okay, so that's step number 3. I'm going to go to the next step now, which is assuring accessibility. We have to make sure that your processes and procedures are accessible to everyone. You say, yeah, of course, but don't think that this is always being done, because that's one of the main problems that I see in adherence to processes and procedures and making sure that they're followed by all. What I see is that they are either not documented, not read, or it's hard to find them. Just look at it for yourself right now and ask yourself the honest question. I mean, ask yourself the question and have the honest answer. Where are your processes right now? If I asked you, show me your processes and procedures, except Louisa, of course, because they have it all documented in one place in a software that they know where it is. But what we did there is we removed it from all the other places. But right now, if it's spread, Google Docs, some in Word documents, some on somebody's desktop, some of this, some of that. So that is going to be definitely, it's going to be hard to find it, and people are not going to be able to find it. So that is something that is very important, that you make it accessible. Now, when I make it accessible, what does it mean by making it accessible? I mean by making it accessible is that it is in one place, and I definitely recommend a process documentation platform. My favorite ones are Sweet Process, Trainual, usewell.io, and I'll be happy to, if you have specific questions, I can tell you which one I like best and why. And also Playbook Builder, so I can show you also examples, but there are nuances between those softwares, but I highly recommend that you use it. So here are the criteria for assuring accessibility. It has to be centralized, easily accessible location. All team members can find and use it when needed. It has to be the single source of truth, that when people know they're going to, let's say, for instance, the profit recipe, they have all of theirs on Trainual. When they log into their Trainual account, they know it's updated. They know it's the single source of truth, and they know that that is where they're going to find their processes and procedures. It has to have a uniform structure. If you are using a process documentation platform, it will have a uniform structure, and it will make it easy for you to find it. All right, now that we've covered everything, let me just recap. 1 is your mindset. And I hope now you also understand why your mindset have to be the right one in order for you to actually follow through with all those steps. Number 2 is that you have to get buy-in from your team. You decided to engage on a process documentation project, and you want everybody on board. You're not there yourself. It's an initiative that everyone is doing. And as somebody mentioned, you make it your rock for the quarter. You make sure that you are utilized, that everybody's on board and it's part of your plan. Then you make sure you have well-documented processes and procedures. If you don't, that part can take several months. Again, you don't have, I understand you don't have the time to just spend hours and hours a week to do that. So if you apply the 90-minute rule, like we do when we work with our clients, I'm just giving you our successful actions and best practices. When we do that, it takes about 2 to 3 months per department to document. So if, like, let's say, for instance, you want to document your accounting department, depends on how robust it is, it might take you 2 months to do that. So the documentation itself can take several months. Then you make it accessible. As you document, you make it accessible. I'm not saying that you start documenting and then you have to wait a year. You can do things concurrently, but just so you know, the bulk of the time will be spent in extracting that information so you can have something to implement. Then you are going to make sure it's accessible. And now we're going to roll it out to the team. So here's how you do that. So it's a collaborative review. Let me explain what that means. When you are, let's say you are documenting your sales processes and you have, let's say you're a construction company, you have 6 estimators. You're not going to, how are you actually going to create the processes? There are different ways of doing it. You might take the sales manager who is really good. It depends on what your role is. You might be very good at it and have knowledge as well. And together you collaborate, you create all the procedures. If you have done that, then the first thing you need to do is you need to have the review by the rest of the estimators. Okay? Because they need to tell you whether it was workable or not. It might be that some of them are new. Maybe you have 2 new estimators. You're not necessarily going to give it to them. The selected group will be the 4 that have been with you for a long time and are the most experienced, because we want to get their feedback first before we roll it out to others. Now, when we roll it out to others, that might include other people in the sales department, maybe the telemarketers, maybe you have canvassers, maybe you have admin that also need to know the processes and procedures, but they are not necessarily going to be part of the selected group. Then we go into training and implementation. So that will include all team members that touch that procedure, whether they directly follow it or they are from a different department and they need to know. For instance, if I'm documenting operations, I definitely would like my sales team to also know how we do operations, because when they sell to the customer, if they understand the processes, they will be able to sell much better. Maybe some of the processes in operations is too technical for the salespeople. They can just see it high level, just the overall checklist, but they need to know. So then with certainty and conviction, they can talk to their customers and say, hey, the reason why we are different is because we have well-documented processes for our operations department. Our handoff is smooth. Our operations know exactly what to do. And then firsthand they experience that, they will be able to also talk about it better. As an example, you want to collect feedback. I'm going to now give you an example of questions to ask your team for feedback. We do it every time. And again, Louisa went through that with us. After we documented the processes for the profit recipe, we collected feedback on everything. They were wonderful because they provided feedback. We saw things that we didn't think about when we were documented. We saw things that need to be improved, optimized, and that's how we created those perfect processes at the end. So here's the survey. Here is what to ask your team members. Okay, you send it to them. You give them a specific due date to answer it. You analyze the response. Again, I'm going to move to the next slide. If you want a copy of this, just email, even right now, just message Joy right now. I want a copy of please send me a copy of the slide with your name and email. Okay, so you got the feedback. We collected feedback. Now we do repetitive improvement. Based on the feedback, we improve the processes. And we measure effectiveness. We measure the effectiveness of the process. We assign a scorecard and measurement to everything that we just documented. Again, let's say, for instance, in the beginning, your measurement of success was that we want to reduce the errors to 0. Then we need to start measuring the errors before and after. And that is what you're going to tell the team to do. That's part of the rollout. Okay, so now I would like to hear from you is what challenges do you foresee in rolling out the procedures to your team, and how would you overcome them? So that's, and I'm putting those group discussions here so you can take this and lead it with your leadership team, okay? Because that is key to have those discussions within your leadership team so everybody is on board and on the same page. So even start, before you actually tell me how you're going to overcome them, if you don't know right now, just what is the first thing that came to mind when I ask you, what challenges do you foresee in rolling out the procedures to your team? Make sure you send it in either to Joey, I mean, if you have it on Joey, that it's actually to everyone. Compliance, okay. Probably, I understand that. Communication, we're mainly remote. And okay, yeah, I mean, we use Slack, we are remote and use Slack all the time, so I understand. So yeah, the volume of the communication, exactly. So that is a great challenge. I completely understand that. And we can definitely have strategies on how to handle that. Lack of commitment, yes, we do need to get commitment. That is key. Allocating and blocking the time to do it, time capacity, variety of learning personalities, absolutely, yes, everyone following. So I explained the why. Those are great things, and I can do a whole lecture just on each one of them. But the key here is identifying what it is, right? And I'm going to take one and give you an example of how to handle that issue. I mean, those are basically issues that you need to IDS. Those are issues that you need to discuss and solve in order to identify how to get a processes documented. So let's take one. So allocating the time for it. Good. If you actually have the mindset, you get the buy-in, and you get this is one method of doing it, right? Is if you get the mindset, you get the buy-in, but you also are convinced that by doing this, you're going to resolve a problem. Let's say, for instance, we have a problem of retention. I'll give you an example of one of our clients. It's an accounting firm that offers a special consulting program to their clients. They noticed that they've been losing clients that have been signing up because they're not onboarding them correctly. They're super busy. They're scrambling because they're really successful. People are signing up left and right, but they cannot retain their customers, and that's a problem. But they can't also take time to document, or that's what they felt like. So that's why they engaged with us, and that was the consideration that they had, and said, okay, look, if you do not find a time, first of all, I can't work with you, because if you're absolutely convinced there is no time, there is no time. However, I do understand the constraint of having no time. So here, if you actually implemented the processes and procedures, what would success look like? What would have to happen at the end of this project for you to know it was a success and worthwhile? Well, if we keep our retention, so retention going from, let's say, 50% to 100 or to 95% or 90%, because there will be the clients that you don't want anyway. So let's say from 50 to 90, would that be successful? Yes. What does that translate in dollars? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars, believe it or not, because it's an expensive program. And each client, it's also the lifetime of a client. But not only that, it's the reputation, the bad reputation they get within a very close community, that if they lose that, they're losing on future clients, but they're also losing on referrals. So we came up with a number, and it's a substantial number. Okay, so ask yourself this question. If you right now had the opportunity to sit in front of a client and close a contract for, let's say, $300,000. Now, some of you might have businesses that you deal with, bigger numbers, but this $300,000 equal to a very highly profitable. So let's say, what about if you can sit down and create one deal? And there can be many others, but this is just one that you can profit about $200,000. Would you find the time to do it? Especially if I'm asking you for 90 minutes a week. Would you, or 90 minutes and let's say an additional hour, so let's say 2.5 hours a week. Would you find the time to do that? Would that be worthwhile investment? Well, absolutely. Okay. Well, let's say the other scenario is you don't do that and you're losing $500,000 within the next 2 months. And you're investing 15 hours in, or whatever hours you're investing in that. Would that make sense? No. All right. So you really look at it logically about the return on investment. And when you talk to the group, you talk like that. So everybody, you get the buy-in from everyone. So that is a story. That's an example. Now, I don't want to just be like, flippant about it or glib and say, yeah, of course, find the time. No, you have to, you do have to organize. And that's one of the things that you as a leader will tell the group. That's what we always do with our clients. It's like, we're going to organize. You're going to get that 90 minutes with us. Then we do our thing behind the scene and write everything. And yes, it takes hours. I do understand. I just want to clarify the hour and a half is to extract the information. It does take time to write those processes. So you do have, if you're doing it in-house, you'll have to allocate time for that. For every 90 minutes that we do face-to-face with you extracting information, it takes us about 10 hours behind the scenes. So I'm not trying to say that you can do everything in an hour and a half, but we also do it condensed because then you get it within a few weeks, like within a few months, we're done with the project. If you don't have the time, it will take you longer, but fine. But you make the time to do it. You got to make the time, especially for the implementation, and it's a matter of organizing. But if you have the strong why behind it, it makes it easier. So that is an example. I mean, I can give on and on examples, for instance, like in terms of remote teams, Slack, and I'm going to give just that one example. Slack or Teams, Microsoft Teams, has to be super well organized. And I monitor and police it myself. Obviously, my office manager does as well. But we have specific channels to communicate. And we do not communicate everything on Slack. We also have a project management, a task management software. We use ClickUp. You can use Asana, Monday, etc. And we actually teach our clients how to use that with integration with Slack. So Slack is only the communication back and forth, the more urgent one. The projects themselves are being run in Asana or Monday or ClickUp. They integrate, and we have a whole board of process implementation and in process improvement. Our rocks are on ClickUp. So it's just a matter of organizing it and organizing the channels on which the communication travels. Because if you have one channel or you have one way in Slack and it's free for all, I'll give you another example. I'm just working with a client, a recruiting company. Their Slack was just free for all. They don't use threads. They don't have a process on how to use Slack. Complete mess, and nobody wants to use it because you can't communicate. So we actually created a process on how to communicate on Slack, how to use emojis, how to use threads, how to answer, what goes here, what goes there. It's all a matter of organizing, but those are definitely challenges that will have to be worked through before you engage on the process documentation and the rollout. All right, let's go to the next slide. Here's the challenges. So those are the most common ones, and that was what was mentioned. It's very close to what was mentioned in the chat. It's resistant to change. You will have people that don't want it implemented because they feel like they're being threatened, that their jobs are being taken away from them, that they don't want people to know what they're doing. And it doesn't mean that all of them are evil or bad or you have to fire them. It might be just reassurance that that's what's needed. Lack of participation. One of you said that. It's like, I'm not interested in participating. Well, that's where you have to be creative and show them what is in it for them. But on the other hand, you have to show that there is no choice. This is the way the company is going. This is the culture. This is what we're all doing. And it's kind of like, honestly, when you create that culture, you create that group, if they are still resisting or don't want to participate, they will stand out and they will be different and they will see it. So I can give you countless examples where we encounter that. And I can tell you that 80% for sure, maybe higher, we were able to handle the individuals. 20% or more, even closely maybe to 10 or 5, they probably were not meant, they were one leg out anyway. They were probably already sabotaging something in your company, and they were probably not the right fit for your company. And you probably already know it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that right now, you probably already feel it within yourself that, yeah, I know I'm going to get resistance from that person. I know, I already worked with Gerardo and he told me that that person is not the right person for the right seat, but I didn't do anything about it. I worked with Jennifer and she told me, or Isabel, yeah, I know, I can hear them and their voice in my head. Well, maybe now it's actually confirms it and I need to do something about it. Lack of training, not knowing how to train or not training your employees will present a challenge in the rollout. Someone says different ways of training, different ways of learning. And I agree. That's why when we document our processes, it's not one size fits all. I heard different ideas. Oh, it all should be in videos. Oh, all should be in writing. Oh, do this, do that. No, we have 4 different ways of learning, and our processes that we write encompass all of them, and I encourage you to do the same. Some people are good at reading and writing, and that's what they want. They want to read instructions. Some people are more visual, so they need the videos. Some of them are audio, they want to listen to what you have to say. Some of them are kinesthetic, so they want to touch, they want to do, so you have to have actual practical assignments, downloadable forms, etc. People ask me, what do you recommend videos against non-videos? So I would not recommend long videos. I'll give you an example for myself. This morning, I was looking at instructions on YouTube because I wanted to figure out something in the home, what to do, and I wanted to see how long it will take. And the video was 4 minutes and 59 seconds. I was like, oh, come on, give me a break. I won't have one answer. If I had the instructions, I will go immediately to the instructions and just read it and understand it. I did want to have a visual though. So if the video would have been less than 2 minutes, I would watch the video. I mean, I ended up watching the video, but fast forwarding to the part that I wanted. The beginning of it was just fluff, the person explaining and giving all these inapplicable things. We all also experience this, I'm sure, in blogs, right? I mean, how many of you look for a recipe online and then there was a story about that recipe that has nothing to do with the recipe, and then there is a button somewhere that you find, go to recipe to instructions. Usually I click on it because I don't necessarily want to hear the history. Let's say I'm making fried rice. I don't want to hear about the history of rice in Asia for the last 3,000 years. I know I'm being facetious, but sometimes that's the way it feels, right? It tells you all this inapplicable. So when we write instructions, it has to be to the point that is very easy to find, like bolding the right word, the keywords, making sure your eye goes to where it needs to go, and having also some screenshots if you are talking about a process that involves a software. Inadequate communication. If you don't communicate about it, if you don't communicate regularly, if you do not say exactly what you want and how you want it rolled and how you want it trained, it will be a problem. And insufficient resources. If you're trying to do a rollout process and you have, let's say you are doing it for the call center, you have receptionists, but 2 of them just quit and you only have 2 and they are on the phones all the time and you don't give them the time to do it, we're going to have a problem. So you have to allocate your resources correctly, and that's part of management. If you're saying, I don't have time, I don't have resources, well, that's a problem because that's also part of what you as a manager should do. So, yes, and somebody said data integrity. Data sometimes relies on employee and is not necessarily transparent. That is very true. So therefore, you have to have ways of verifying. You have to know, like for instance, in my company, we rely a lot on data, but we have a procedure on how to achieve that data. And we have to also have the transparency where the data came from. So if I'm suspecting, it happened this morning, I suspected the number, it goes like, it doesn't make sense, but I know where to go exactly. It doesn't take a lot of my time to validate it and see if it's correct. Next one. Here are, this is the challenges. Oh, sorry, unclear roles and responsibilities. That's another thing here. So we have, if you don't assign the processes to specific roles and responsibilities, then it basically goes without a parent, without a guardian, without somebody to monitor it, and it's not going to be successful. Next, step number 6. Again, I'm reminding you, those are the 8 steps on how to get your processes followed by all. Step number 6, use the processes in day-to-day management. If you don't use something, it's not going to get adhered to. It's okay to document your processes. It's actually necessary, but it's only necessary if they're going to be used and if it's going to be used on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that I hear a lot is, I can't really document my processes because they change all the time. And I was actually thinking about it this morning because our processes changed as well internally, because we always engage in process improvement. For instance, we have a process on how to onboard new clients. I had a meeting before we onboard a new client. We have an internal meeting with the account manager, with the technical writer, with the salesperson, and we all discuss the client to make sure that they are set for success. We had a meeting like that for a recent client that just signed up last week. And we realized that there is something that needs to be tweaked in our process because it's not as efficient internally, and we can actually give the client a better experience if we tweak it. Fine, we tweaked it. It doesn't mean that the process cannot be documented. If you think that it's changed all the time, there is a problem there, because there are some stable steps that are not going to change. It might be a tweak here or a tweak there. And I'm sure Louisa can attest to it as well. I mean, we document the core processes. They hired a new person. There were some changes, some tweaks, but now we know where to put them, as opposed to before, it was this vague place. But that is an example of using it in day-to-day management. You don't have to wait to manage. You have to have a process documented, roll it out, use it, and tweak it as you go. So here are this is how you use the processes in day-to-day management. And those are all the topics. And we have here, and I'm going to go over them one by one, but if you want to take a picture of, and again, we're going to email it to you, but take a picture right now to refer to it, that's fine as well. And I'm going to go over each one of these steps. So routine application. Whenever you have tasks, decision-making, problem-solving, you are doing IDS, your L10 meetings, in daily checklist, project management tools, workflows, time management, always refer to your procedures. Don't document your procedures and have them sit here. And now when you are looking at like, okay, well, how are we going to allocate the time? You're not even looking at the procedure where your solution is right there, because this is the procedure. Those are steps 1 to 6, and step 1, 2, 3 can be done in this amount of time. Step 5, 4 can be done in this amount of time, and then step 6 at the end of the project. So when you're managing time, you want to follow a procedure, because people that say that they don't have time, they don't even start. They just say, I don't have time to do it. But you know what? If you take this procedure and actually start implementing it step by step, you're going to create the time and you're going to be able to go through this. Identify issues. So use processes to identify issues. Compare outcomes against documented processes to pinpoint breakdowns. That's a key. Ask yourself, is it a people-related problem, a process-related problem, or both? Do people need to be trained on the process a little bit better? Does the process have to be tweaked? So utilize it. Reference from questions. Do you know that when I ask, especially visionaries, I go like, how would you determine success of this project? What will happen? What will have to happen at the end of our project together to know that it was a success, because now you have documented processes that are followed by all? And the number one answer that I get, and especially from visionaries, is people are not going to walk into my office anymore and ask me all these questions that they can find themselves. Or I'm not going to be asked this question 10 times. Or I'm not going to be asked how to do this and how to do that. And that is key, is to refer them back. What does the process say? Key component. And making it easily accessible is key, so they can refer to it instead of answering. And it also comes down to your own discipline to make sure that you follow that. You use it in hiring, onboarding, and training. And right here is the list. We use it in we have a process for pre-hiring assessment. When we look at it, what is the process? We make sure in pre-hire assessments that we get them to follow the process so they know it's a process-oriented company. General onboarding, role-specific training. When you introduce new processes or tools, you gotta train and make process adherence key part of the probation evaluation period to make sure you have the right person. When you do performance evaluation, use it for performance evaluation. Is the person following the process? Do they contribute to the business goals? Do they adhere to it? You also want to validate the right things. Highlight examples of process adherence contributing to success. Workflow standardization and quality assurance. Something is not going well. Take the process out. Where are we? Regularly compare output of deliverables to documenting standards. Well, this is our standard of how we do an inspection, but you know what? We are missing some things that the estimator has to go back. Let's adjust the process and see how we can make it better. Always identify gaps or areas for improvement. Again, this is a lot of information. I wanted to give you a very packed webinar. So I'm not concentrating on each one. Each one I can elaborate and explain it to you. But you can have the checklist and go through it and develop it more or reach out for more information. Recognition or feedback, very important. We have to highlight adherence to process in meetings. In your staff meeting, well, Louisa, good job. You followed the process and look at the results that you got. Or even Louisa herself, I can say, Louisa, good job. Last week you onboarded 5 different clients successfully. And you go, yeah, I used the process and it let me work really fast and blah, blah, blah. Just share those wins and it will be contagious and more people would want to adhere to it. Encourage feedback. Use survey suggestion boxes, feedback sessions. Okay, so this is an homework for you. When you meet with your team, you know what, actually, let's do it now. We have a little bit of time. Put in the chat one example of what did you learn from this step 6 of follow the rollout process, and how will you integrate the processes into day-to-day management? Something you haven't thought of or something that was on your mind and you wanted to do it anyway. Just a one-liner so we see just a little bit. Now I talked at you, now you talk at me. Yeah, what does the process say? I love that. It's a very good one. Train managers to respond to questions. Good. Anyone else? Think about something. Force yourself right now to go, okay, one example of how you will integrate process into day-to-day management. Whether you're going to put it as a rock for the quarter, or whether you are going to bring it when people are, there needs to be a review process. That's right. So we are a checklist to help employees follow process. Yes, that's the next thing. And this is going to be a checklist. So I'm going to get to that slide. Fabulous. Give me somebody else. I'm going to have 3 of those. So we'll share another example of how you will integrate processes into day-to-day management. Good. Start to turn checklists into CRM workflows. Excellent. That's exactly right. You take your processes and then you automate them. That's very true. When identifying issues, determine people or process problem. Spot on. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Very good. So now step number 7 of making sure your processes are followed by all. So this is somebody mentioned it in the chat, and that was true. So regularly review the systems. So here are best practices. Again, this is quite a dense slide, but it has all the steps that we take in order to review processes. So you schedule regular reviews, you define objectives, you involve regular stakeholders, you assign ownership of each procedure to each person, you follow the process review checklist, which is right here. If you follow it every single time, it's going to be successful. We also have a standalone review checklist. If you want it, go to the chat right now and tell Joey as well. Email me the process review checklist, and we will send it to you as a checklist that you can use over and over. Going back to the best practices, you pilot changes, because if you follow the review, you'll see there that there might be changes. You want to make sure you pilot changes before full implementation. That's change management 101. You do not want to now change something without a proven concept and without proving it by numbers that it actually made a difference. We are very careful, especially when we go to companies that are very successful. We are very careful not to change things without documentation, that it actually works, without measurements, etc. Document changes and revisions. Communicate changes effectively. Again, this is key. I've seen companies change things. I'm guilty of that. Oh yeah, let's change this process. And then, wait a second, we didn't send it to everybody. How will they know about those changes? I have to train the employees on changes. Not just have them read it, but practice. So that's where the training is very important as well, especially if it's something that has to do with doing this, right? So let's say you change the way that you take payments from your customers. We have to train the employees, not just this is the way we're doing it. It will be more, okay, here is a fictitious customer. Let's run through it several times until you feel comfortable and know how to do it. Monitor post-implementation performance, always with numbers. Did we achieve what we wanted? How do we define success? And are we there? Schedule the next review. Don't forget that. Now, people usually ask me, this is a question that comes up a lot, like how often do we review? And the answer is it depends. It depends on the maturity of the process. It depends on the maturity of your company. I would suggest to do at least a yearly review broken down to quarters. So it should be a quarter on your quarterly meeting to review, or the L10 at the end of the quarter, to review at least, let's say you have 8 departments, so each quarter will review 2, and then it makes it that in a year you review all your processes. If it's a newer process, if it's a changing process, if you experience a lot of changes, then you can also review it maybe monthly at the beginning. Depends on how fast the changes that process makes happens, okay? I mean, if it's a process that you acquire a new customer every 3 months, I'm not going to look at it every month. I'm going to look at it quarterly to make sure what was the result at the end of the quarter. However, if it's a high changing process and it's new, you might want to review it monthly using the same checklist until it stabilizes, and then you can go to quarterly, every 6 months, or a year. So you need to define what makes sense. Again, it's not one size fits all. It has to be customized. You have to think about it. You have to see it logically, why it applies. And the last but not least, the 8th step of making sure your processes are followed by all is this one. It's accountability. Now, we use that word a lot. It's being thrown out there. But accountability is being able to stand out there and say, and tell the story and explain and give an explanation. So if you have a process you need to follow, then you have to be able to stand in front of the group and be accountable that it was followed. Or if you said at the beginning of the quarter that you're going to make sure these processes are going to be followed by everyone in your department, you should be able at the end of the quarter stand up and you're going to be asked Adi, what did you do? Well, I was able to do this, this, and this. This worked, it didn't work. We still need more work on this, but I'm accountable for it. I take responsibility for it. Do you know, by the way, that accountability comes from counting, right? I mean, you're counting. It's like accountant. So in the old days, when you gave somebody money, and they kept it for you like a banker, today they should too, but that's where the word came from. I looked it up. Then when you came back, they basically counted in front of you to show you that, they were accountable, that they return all the money to you. So they are able to take responsibility and show that that's what's done. So this is an activity I usually do just because time, and I want to leave enough time for questions and answers. So, but this is an activity you can do with your group, and I suggest that you do that with your leadership team. Discuss strategies for fostering a culture of accountability around process adherence. And here are some ideas. It's assigning clear ownership. So when your team will come up with those answers, ask them, how are we going to implement that? You incorporate it into job roles. The way that we do it, we have a job description, and it basically links to the procedures to follow. Regular training and refresher courses. That needs to be done all the time. Audit and feedback cycles. So you audit, you give feedback, and then you have to make sure that there is follow-up on the feedback. You build processes into daily routines. So when you have a head of the sales department, and the sales are not doing as well as they should, there should be the accountability of looking into the processes, the sales processes, and seeing that they're actually being implemented. And of course, leadership by example. You have to lead by example, and you have to make sure that you are setting the right example and leading the team. So that is accountability. There is more. You recognize and reward compliance. You include it in team meetings because that holds you accountable, because you are telling your story, you're telling what's happening. You encourage also peer accountability. I had a client told me this story, that the way they implemented it, and then they created that culture where somebody saw that the process is not being followed by another peer. They will tell them, hey, you're not following the process. Let's follow the process. That is accountability. That is holding another person accountable for what they need to be doing. Address non-compliance. That's accountable. And of course, celebrate success stories. So what this does, step 8, is basically holding everybody accountable, that if you're committed to implementing processes, those are the actions we actually do in order to make sure those processes are implemented. Okay, now we're going to go into Q&A. I would love to hear your feedback as well. So actually, before we go into Q&A, Joy is going to put in the chat right now a link to a survey. If you can pick up that link, click on it, and fill it out. You can fill it out when we're done, but just have it on your browser so you don't forget. That's very important for us, because I want to make sure that what we deliver to you is valuable. Again, this is part of your Profit Recipe experience. We're a strategic partner, and we are here to help you with processes. So pick up that link from the chat, make sure you can open it, and then and Joe, you're gonna put it in, right? The link to here it is. So go ahead, I'll give you a minute, just open it up on your browser so you can fill it out after the call. I'm really interested to hear your feedback. And if you also need that link, Louisa will email it to you, but it'll be easier if you can just do that. And if you want to schedule a time with me and talk about your processes, talk more about how you can get it followed by all, scan this QR code, email me, text me, whatever works. I'm here to help you, and I want to make sure that you are a huge success.